It is time for Week 2 NFL predictions for each game. I did this last week, obviously. I went 10-5-1, which I don't think is that good, so I'm not happy about it. But Week 1's always hard, so hopefully this is a better week. There are some tough games to predict this week, but hopefully I do better. As always, the timestamps will be in the description for each game, so if you want to go to a particular game, just find it in the description. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get into the games. So we start with a Thursday nighter, of course, a matchup of two 0-1 teams to start the season, Thursday Night Football. The Panthers are favored by 6.5 points, no surprise there based off how bad the Buccaneers looked last week. And speaking of how bad they looked, Jameis Winston, can he bounce back from a 3-interception game? I don't think he'll be that bad again, but I really don't have confidence of Jameis Winston being any good this week, so we'll see what he does. Hopefully he surprises me because I like Jameis. I root for him to succeed, but did not happen last week. Can the Bucs pass rush rattle Cam? That's a pretty big thing if they want to win. I think the Buccaneers have some good pass rushers there. They have a pretty good defense. I mean, for the most part, their secondary is pretty awful, but I think their front seven's not too bad, so I mean, they have that going for them. So can they get pressure on Cam Newton? They have good offensive weapons on both sides. You look at the Buccaneers. I mean, they didn't do much last week, but Mike Evans, who had an off game, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard had a rough game last week. They have Curtis Samuel, Greg Olsen if he plays, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, obviously. So there's a bunch of good offensive weapons to watch that should be fun. Offensive line issues, especially for the Buccaneers, but possibly the Panthers as well. So we'll see how the offensive lines hold up. And as I said, the loser goes to 0-2. So I mean, this is a big game, in division game, kind of a, I don't want to say must win in week 2, but it would be pretty bad to lose a Week 2 game and go 0-2, especially in the division. So, big game for both of these teams. I'm picking the Panthers, obviously. It'd be hard to pick the Buccaneers based off what we saw last week. Wasn't really surprised, or I wasn't really thrilled with what I saw from Jameis Winston. I expected a bigger jump, but it just looks like the same crap, different year. So, we'll see what happens. I'm going to be watching this one for sure, and I got the Panthers winning this one. For the 1 o'clock Sunday games, we first have the Chargers at the Lions. Some injuries for the Chargers that came out today. Hunter Henry is out for apparently 4 to 6 weeks. Could be longer than that with some kind of knee injury. So hate to see that. I was big on Hunter Henry this year. Of course, he missed basically all of last year with the ACL tear. So sucks to have that happen, but he is still young. I'm sure he'll come back, and hopefully he's healthy from there on out. There's an injury to Mike Williams, their big receiver. It's a knee injury. Not sure how bad it is. He should play, but it is something to monitor. So, I mean, we're not positive he'll play, but I'm pretty sure he will. This line's kind of fishy. It's -2.5 Chargers. I mean, I feel like they want you to bet the Chargers, but, like, that's kind of weird. I don't know. I wouldn't bet this game. I'm going to stay away from it. So, I mean, I think the Chargers will win this game ultimately, but it's just weird to see a -2.5. Maybe we're overrating the Lions based off what they did last week. They played the Cardinals, who, man, they have a rough defense over there. But anyway, is Detroit's offense legit? So, as I said, they played the Cardinals. Very weird philosophy they had there. The Cardinals were basically stacking the box. I saw a stat that C.J. Anderson and Kerryon Johnson, the running backs for the Lions, faced the most stacked boxes, and then that basically opened up the passing game for Matt Stafford. If you watch Matt Stafford's highlights, I mean, it was just open receiver after open receiver down the field making big plays. T.J. Hawkinson was running with, 10 yards of space around him. It's like no one had interest in covering the guy, so I don't know how legit this Lions offense is. I'm not a Matt Patricia fan, so we'll see what they do in this game against a better defense. How does the Chargers offensive line look? I believe Phillip Rivers got sacked 4 times against the Colts. I'm not positive on that number. It was like 4 or 5. They have a new left tackle, obviously, because of the Russell Okung being out, but yeah, we'll see how their offensive line holds up. I think the Lions have a decent defensive line. I know Devon Kennard had 3 sacks. Former Giant had 3 sacks last week in like the first half, so we'll see if he can do that again. How did the Lions players respond? And I'm talking about, obviously, the Lions had that game 1 in Arizona, but Darrell Bevell, their new offensive coordinator, called a very, very unfortunately timed timeout, and it took away a first down, and they didn't convert, and then the game went to overtime, and of course they ended in a tie. So how do the Lions players respond after having a win taken away from them from their own offensive coordinator? That can't be a good feeling. A West Coast team playing at 1 p.m., you always have to take that into account. The Chargers usually don't have a problem with this, especially on their under Anthony Lynn, so we'll see what they do. I think that'll be fine. And do the Chargers running backs still dominate? So, I mean, Justin Jackson had a good game last week. I mean, his yards per carry was really good. And, of course, Austin Eckler had like 3 touchdowns, did a lot of work through the air as well. So, I mean, we'll see if they can dominate the game once again. I am picking the Chargers. I'm not going to bet on this game. This line's pretty fishy, but I think the Chargers are just a more talented team. The Lions played the right opponent last week, and they almost lost to them. So, I mean, I'm picking the Chargers. I feel pretty good about picking them, but I would not bet the -2.5. Next, we have a good NFC North matchup of 2 1-0 teams. I'm definitely going to be tuned into this one. We have the Vikings at the Packers. Packers are favored by 3 points. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. So what to watch is, I was about to say DeMarcus Cousins. Is Kirk Cousins, or is he going to pass as many times as he did last week? So Kirk Cousins had 10 pass attempts against the Falcons in a full game in 2019. That's very hard to do. They obviously want to run the ball a lot. That's what they hired Kevin Stefanski to do. Alexander Mattison, Dalvin Cook had big games on the ground. But I don't think against the Packers there's only going to be 10 pass attempts for Kirk Cousins. It would be hard to replicate that once again. The Packers defense and Vikings defense, for that matter, both looked really good and basically dominant. I understand that Mitchell Trubisky did not play well and did not look good at all. I understand. I mean, Matt Ryan's a good quarterback, so to stop them, the Falcons have a really bad offensive line this year, it seems like. So, I mean, it makes sense of what happened there, but let's see how these defenses play against each other. Dalvin Cook against a better defense. So the Falcons, they looked rough on defense last week. How does Dalvin Cook fare against a better defense, or what we think is a better defense? I'm sure he'll get fed the ball a lot unless the Packers happen to go up early in this one, but he will get probably, I would say, around 18 to 22 carries, and we'll see what he does with those. And possibly a low-scoring game. I don't know what the over-under is, but if it's something like, reasonable, I would probably bet the under. I expect this to be a defensive game. Of course, it's outdoors in Green Bay. The weather's not bad yet, but, we'll see what kind of weather it is. Who knows? I do have the Packers winning this game. Of course, I'm big on the Packers. I love Aaron Rodgers. And the Vikings defense is a little better, but I still think the Packers win it at the quarterback spot, so I have to go with Aaron Rodgers against Kirk Cousins. And obviously, I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers at home, so wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings won this game, but I do have the Packers winning this one. Next, we have the Colts at the Titans, a -3 for the Titans. I guess that makes sense based off what they did in Cleveland last week, and I honestly don't have a good feel for this game. I could see the Colts winning this one as well. It'd be hard to see the Colts going 0-2, but we'll see what happens. So can Tennessee's offense keep it up? Obviously, Marcus Mariota had a really good game last week. Derrick Henry played well. He had that 75-yard screen pass. Delaney Walker had a pair of touchdowns, so we'll see if they can keep that up. I doubt it, but we'll see. Tennessee's defense is still scary. I mean, yeah, it is. I don't know why I put a question mark there, but it's still very scary. We'll see what Jacoby Brissett can do against them. Can the Colts make big plays? I mean, that's the thing. I feel like they're going to give Jacoby Brissett a lot of underneath stuff. I don't really see them making too many big plays. I'd be surprised personally if T.Y. Hilton catches a 60-yard bomb in this game. So we'll see if they can just keep chipping away and eventually be successful in the red zone. I think red zone success is going to be huge for the Colts in this game. Derrick Henry 25+ carries, ? Possibly. I think that's a very realistic thing for this game. I think Henry had maybe 18 carries last week, but I think 25+ is definitely in the cards this week based off how this game should go. I think they're going to use him a lot and lean on him based off this matchup, so we'll see how much they feed him. Adam Vinatieri missed 3 field goals last week. I think one was an extra point, maybe 1 extra point, 2 field goals or something like that. I forget what they were exactly, but he missed 3 times. Very unlike Adam Vinatieri. He's 45, 46. I forget how old he is exactly, but still, he's been doing it for a long time, and hopefully this is not the end for him. I hope he just had one bad game, and he'll fix it this game, so we'll see what happens with Vinatieri. I am picking the Titans. I am not confident in it whatsoever. I, once again, will not bet this game, but I could see it going either way, but for the sake of the video, I have to pick the Titans, and we'll go with that. The Patriots at the Dolphins. I won't spend too much time on it. The one thing I want to say about this game is I personally cannot fathom betting a -18.5 in a professional football game. I just cannot see that. I'm not saying it's the wrong pick, but that is so many points. I think the Cardinals were a plus 16 last year or something like that, but minus 18.5, and it's even higher in some other places. It's crazy. I mean, I cannot see myself betting that. That's just a crazy number, but also I wouldn't be shocked if they got it, if they covered it, so we'll see. Does AB make his New England debut? It's possible. I think, he might be on like a pitch count. I don't think he'll play the whole game, especially against the Dolphins, but we'll see. I do think he'll suit up, though. Does Belichick run up the score? Of course, he's facing a former Patriot. I think he was a linebackers coach. I forget the guy's name now. Something Flores, who's coaching the Dolphins now, used to be with the Patriots. Their offensive coordinator is a former Patriots coach as well. So I don't think Bill Belichick's going to like show them up and try to run up the score. I think it'll be like a respectful type of, I don't know if you can say respectful blowout, but that's what I'm going with. So Fitzpatrick or Rosen, I think Fitzpatrick is slated to start this game, but like it might switch off all season. Who knows? I mean, last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston traded all season. I wouldn't be surprised if Rosen and Fitzpatrick traded this season, so we'll see what they do. And a lot of people talking about the Patriots going 16-0. I mean, yeah, it's possible, but like I don't know. I think that's a little crazy. I understand the Patriots have a pretty easy schedule for the most part, but going 16-0 is very hard. I mean, I think they'll slip up maybe once or twice this year. I don't think they're going 16-0. I could look back on this and be very wrong, but for them to go 16-0, I don't know. I mean, there's just too many questions with Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon staying out of trouble, Julian Edelman staying healthy. I mean, their defense is pretty good, but like it's mostly coaching, I would say. I don't think they're the most talented defense, but who knows? It's possible they go 16-0. I'm just not counting on it. There's, of course, some Patriots fans that are just banking on going 16-0. I would not say that, but we'll see what happens when the season's over. The Buffalo Bills at my New York Giants. The Bills are favored by 1.5 points, and it makes sense because the Bills, I mean, how many times do you see a quarterback with 4 turnovers, yet they still win the game? That's impressive in itself, and I do think the Jets are a little better than the Giants right now, roster-wise. I mean, I'm sure some Giants fans will argue that, but like honestly, I think the Jets have a little bit of a better roster right now. The Bills playing at MetLife twice in a row. They're going to be at the same hotel, same routine for 2 weeks in a row. I don't consider this a major like road game for them. They're opening in the same stadium, MetLife Stadium, twice in a row. So it's not really a, of course the crowd noise is going to be in effect and stuff like that, but it's really not a big deal for the Bills traveling. They're going to be in the same stadium 2 weeks in a row. I think that helps them a lot. Saquon with more carries, I mean, he better. Saquon Barkley, I believe, had 11 carries last week, was running at 10 yards per carry, and the Giants coach, Pat Shurmur, did not use him as much as he should have, so I'm sure Saquon is bound to see 18-plus carries in this game no matter what. The Giants had 0 pass rush against the Cowboys, so I'm sure Josh Allen will have all day to throw. He had a lot of time against the Jets as well, so we'll see, but Josh Allen does make some bad throws here and there, so we'll see if the Giants defense can maybe intercept him a couple of times. Might take a couple of pick sixes to win this game. The Bills defense is still very good, and that's why I just said that. I mean, I don't know how much Eli Manning is going to be successful against this Bills defense. It is very good. I mean, their secondary is unbelievable. They create enough pressure, and it might be a rough going for the Giants offense in this game. So big plays for the Bills. It's possible the Giants have a rough secondary. Josh Allen could throw the ball 80 yards probably. They have a speedster, John Brown, on the outside. I think what's the guy's name? Robert Foster. He might still be there. He's like their 4th receiver, though. Zay Jones can make a big play here and there. So the Bills have guys to make big plays, and with the Giants secondary being very questionable, it could very well happen. And Devin Singletary against Frank Gore. I tweeted about this morning. It pissed me off how Singletary had 4 carries and Frank Gore had like 10 or 11, and Frank Gore was averaging 1.8 yards per carry, while Devin Singletary had 4 carries for 70 yards. I mean, like, can I try to use him more? I mean, like, I hope not. I hope they play Frank Gore so my Giants have a better shot at winning, but like, I don't understand what they're doing there. I mean, I think they need to play the better running back. I understand Frank Gore is the veteran that you could trust, but Singletary is probably better and more talented at this point. I mean, why not just use him? I'm sure Bills fans agree with me on that one. And I do have the Bills winning this game. I did pick the Giants before the season started, but I'm changing my mind. I like the Bills a lot. The Giants defense scares the hell out of me. I'm not sure what Eli Manning could do against this great Bills defense, so we'll see. I think it'll be close, but I do have the Bills winning this game, unfortunately. This should be a good one. We have the Seahawks at the Steelers. Of course, the Seahawks traveling basically almost across the country to play this game, so that's not good for them. But the Steelers are favored by 4 points. Seattle barely beat the Bengals last week in a game where a lot of people thought the Seahawks would win by a lot more. The Bengals did cover the spread in that game, but the Steelers had their own problems, of course, losing 33-3 against the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. The nation saw that game, so not a good look for them. But I don't think there's any way the Steelers are that bad twice in a row. I think they're going to bounce back nicely in this game. The Seahawks defense is not what it used to. I think Ben Roethlisberger will look a lot better. James Conner should look a lot better. Hopefully Dante Moncrief and Vance McDonald look better. Dante Moncrief last week looked like he never played receiver in his life. It was a rough game for him, probably the worst game in his life. And Vance McDonald needs more targets. I still think he's a very good pass-catching option for this team at tight end. He's a physical freak and, can have really nice yards after the catch for a tight end. He's very athletic, so hopefully they use him more. The Steelers' defense, it struggled against the Patriots, obviously, but a lot of people struggle in Foxborough, so I still think the Steelers' defense is very, very talented, and they should be better in this game. They have to stop the run. That's the number one priority when you face the Seahawks now. Stopping Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, not the easiest thing to do, but that has to be the number one priority right now. The Seahawks do have a young secondary. That's why I expect Ben Roethlisberger to have a good game. They still have good weapons. I know they're not Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but they still have respectable weapons on this team. I do think Roethlisberger will have a nice game against this young secondary. And the Pittsburgh defensive line against Seattle's O-line. So, of course, Russell Wilson can get out of basically anything, but the Seahawks year after year have a rough offensive line. The Steelers have a very nice defensive line, so we'll see how much pressure they cause and maybe, get to Russell Wilson a few times. We'll see if he can get out of it or not. I am picking the Steelers to win this game. I feel good about this one. And, I do think it'll be a pretty close game for the most part, but I do think the Steelers at home, they just got embarrassed. I think they'll look a lot better this game, and I do have them winning this game to go 1-1. The Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Redskins, and boy, it must be nice to have this Cowboys schedule. You open up with the rebuilding Giants at home, then you play the Washington Redskins. I think they get an easy game next week as well, so I now understand why Jerry Jones said all that stuff about Zeke, how they don't need him in the first quarter of the season. They obviously did not need him because of these matchups. The Cowboys are favored by 5.5 points. It'll definitely be closer than that Giants game they played last week. So is the Cowboys offense legit? So Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator, Dak Prescott looked very, very comfortable in that offense. I know they didn't play against the best defense last week, but he looked very good. If that offense keeps improving and Dak looks the way he did last week, it might be a very, very good season for the Cowboys, and Dak Prescott will earn a lot of money this offseason or even during the season. Can Keenum replicate that performance? So Case Keenum against the Eagles, especially in the first half, had a great half. I believe he threw for 380 yards. A lot of people threw for a lot of yards last week. Even Andy Dalton and Matt Stafford had a lot, but I don't think anyone expected Case Keenum to be that guy, and he had a nice game. Terry McLaurin had a nice catch. Vernon Davis had a ridiculous touchdown in that game, so we'll see if they can do that once again. Dallas' secondary and defense overall is, I think, is better than the Eagles, so it might be a little tougher. They are home this time, though, which helps. The Cowboys' O-line looked great against the Giants. The Giants don't have a great defense in general, obviously. They don't create much of a pass rush or anything like that, but the the offensive line for the Cowboys once again looks legit. It never wasn't legit, but I think it's top notch, like it was maybe a couple of years ago. They had a bit of an off year last year. There were some injuries. Their center was gone the whole year. I think now it's back to full strength, so they look good. Dallas's defensive line against Washington's O-line. Washington's offensive line looked good last week. I don't think Case Keenum was really rattled too much in that game, but it might be different this time. We'll see how much the Cowboys front seven can get to Case Keenum. So I do have the Cowboys winning this game. They should be in control for most of it. Expect Zeke Elliott to get a lot of carries in this game and see if they can control this game on the ground. I'm sure Dak Prescott will toss a couple of touchdowns and look pretty good, but they're not going to ask him to do a lot in this game, so I do have the Cowboys winning this game, going 2-0. Redskins going 0-2. The Arizona Cardinals at the Baltimore Ravens, -13 line in this game. I think the Cardinals are being pretty disrespected here. I understand the Ravens just scored 59 points, but I would definitely bet the Cardinals in this game. Well, not definitely, but if I had to pick, I think the Cardinals -13 is kind of ridiculous, or the Ravens -13. It might be a bit of an overreaction based off what they did against Miami, but I think a lot of teams might do that to Miami this year, so I think this line's a bit off, but we'll see what the final score is on Sunday. Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. So obviously Lamar Jackson, second-year quarterback, tossed 5 touchdowns, was just flicking his wrist 50 yards down the field to Marquise Brown for touchdown after touchdown. Mark Andrews had a big game as well. So does he do that again? Probably not, but he's in a good spot. He's at home against a really bad defense. Matt Stafford tore them apart last week, so maybe he does toss another 5 touchdowns. Who knows? He's had a pretty good schedule to open the season, just like the Cowboys. The Ravens defense looking for turnovers. I mean, that's the thing. We saw Kyler Murray with his interception last week. It was a very, very bad rookie mistake, just rolling out to the right, making a risky throw, got intercepted. This ball-hawking Ravens team is definitely going to be looking for interceptions, so he has to be careful with the ball in this one. The Cardinals' offensive line against Baltimore's defense, not even just their defensive line, but their defense in general. The Cardinals obviously don't have the best offensive line, so we'll see how much pressure gets on Kyler Murray. He was sacked quite a few times last week, but he just makes up for it with his legs and can get out of a lot of sticky situations, so it's nice to have him at quarterback. Marquise Brown's playing time, I believe he played 12 snaps last week, which is insane to think about because he had 4 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, but the guy played 12 snaps. It's crazy, coming off a bad injury, obviously, but he did play week 1, had a great game. He should play a little bit more this week. Maybe he gets in the 20, 30 snaps area, but we'll see what kind of pitch count he's on in this game, and if it's not a competitive game, I'm sure they won't push him to play a lot, so we'll see. And as I said earlier, this spread seems off. I mean, I think the Ravens are getting too much respect. He did play against the Dolphins. We have to take that into account. The Cardinals came back from a 24-6 deficit in the fourth quarter. Maybe Kyler Murray just figured it out and plays himself a good 4 quarters instead of just 1 good quarter. So we'll see. I mean, I do think the Ravens win this game, obviously. They'd probably win by I would say they win by 10 points. I think minus 10 would have been a more fair spread, but minus 13, I mean, I could see it happening, but I would not bet that. So I'm going with the Ravens. They go 2-0. Cardinals, I have them at 0-1, but they're 0-1-1, so that's my fault on that. But they would be 0-1-1. That's their record. So yeah, Ravens 1-0, Cardinals with the loss and a tie. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans. So the Texans are a -9. It makes sense. There's no Nick Foles in this game, obviously. I like this line. I think the Texans are going to win by a lot. I heard some people say they want to pick the Jaguars. I understand 9 points is a lot, but I think coming off that really heartbreaking loss in New Orleans where, the Texans had the lead for a lot of that game, especially in the second half, and it was a comeback win by the Saints, and, it just sucked. I don't know what kind of defense they were playing at the end of that game. It was terrible to see. The Texans should be 1-0 right now. I think they come out and just beat the crap out of the Jaguars, honestly. So we have Deshaun Watson against Gardner Minshew. I mean, if you guys watch me enough, I think Deshaun Watson, if he's healthy, is going to win MVP this year. He looked like an MVP in that game against the Saints. Unfortunately, it resulted in a loss. And Gardner Minshew, I understand he came in and looked good. Not great, but looked good. His completion percentage was nice, but he was making simple throws, but he looked competent. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to get killed in this game, but I don't think he will get killed. I think the Jaguars will get killed in this game, but I think Gardner Minshew will be fine. He might throw 1 or 2 interceptions in this game, but I think he'll be all right. It won't be a complete debacle like we saw with Tom Savage, for instance, last year or 2 years ago before Deshaun Watson took over. That was actually against the Jaguars that game, so you Jaguars fans know what I'm talking about. I don't think it'll be that bad for Gardner Minshew. He looked all right. Does the Jags defense look any better? So Myles Jack got thrown out. The Chiefs scored 40 points against them. I understand it's the Chiefs, but they were at home. It was a hot day. I mean, I don't think they should have scored that many points. Tyreek Hill was out for most of the game, so I don't know. I mean, it was not a good look for the Jaguars defense. I mean, we'll see if they can improve on that or not. The Texans offensive line still sucks. I know Laramie Tunsil was there for only 5 days prior to that game, but I mean, it has to get better throughout the season. I mean, Deshaun Watson cannot keep taking hits like this. They need to get better. I believe he was sacked 6 times last game, so you can't keep passing that. Loser goes 0-2. So I mean, it's a division game once again. This was an example of what other game was it? I think the first game, the Thursday night game, the Panthers and the Buccaneers. Loser of that goes 0-2. Loser of this AFC South battle goes 0-2. So we'll see what happens. I do think the Texans win this game comfortably. We'll see. Maybe Gardner Minshew surprises me. I don't know. I do think the Jaguars can compete without Foles, but I don't think it's happening this week. I do have the Texans winning this game by a decent amount. We have, I believe, the last of the 1 o'clock games, the San Francisco 49ers on the road once again to face the Bengals. And I did admit before that I had trouble with the Titans and Colts game of who to pick, but this one was the hardest one for me. I honestly do not know who to pick. I obviously just went with the home team because, I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to pick this game. I have no feel for it. So can Andy Dalton repeat that great performance in Seattle? I feel like if he could do that on the road in Seattle, I understand their defense isn't what it used to be, but if he can do that in Seattle, why can't he do it at home against the Niners? I think Andy Dalton will be fine in this spot. Can John Ross repeat? He had a huge game. A lot of that was credited to the secondary and for the Seahawks not playing too well. That ridiculous play by the safety where he just, swiped at the ball and went over his head. Terrible play. But I don't know if he'll have 150 yards again. I think he'll be all right, but not 150 yards. Does Garoppolo look better? Jimmy Garoppolo did enough to win the game for them. He wasn't losing the game for them like his opposing quarterback Jameis Winston did. I believe he had one bad turnover in this game, an interception, but Garoppolo has to look better if he wants to earn that paycheck. I understand he's probably going to get most of that money anyway, but he has to look better if he's going to be the franchise guy for this team, so we'll see how he looks. The Cincinnati offensive line against the San Francisco defensive line. I like the San Francisco defensive line a lot. We have Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, D Ford, a lot of good names there. And, I think, the Bengals do have a banged up offensive line. They have, Jonah Williams is out, of course, the whole season. They lost an offensive lineman to retirement, so it might be a rough going for them and their offensive line against this defensive line, so that's something to watch out for. There's no Tevin Coleman in this game with a high ankle sprain, so Matt Breida and, what's the guy's name, Rasheem Mostert or something is going to carry the load at running back for them, so we'll see what they can do. Is Joe Mixon in or out? We're not sure. The great running back for the Bengals, he has an injury as well. I believe it's a regular ankle sprain, so obviously the high ankle sprain is worse, but I think this one's not as bad. He has a shot to play. If not, we'll get a lot of Gio Bernard in this game, and he's fine, so obviously it would help if Joe Mixon was there. So I did pick the Bengals to win. I have no feel for it. I would not be surprised if the Niners won this game. I think a lot of it depends on how Jimmy Garoppolo plays, because right now in my mind I feel like he's going to play an average game, but if he plays really well, they'll win the game. It's plain and simple. I think it all depends on how Garoppolo plays. Can Andy Dalton just play kind of the way he did in Seattle? He doesn't have to be that good, but if he's good enough, I think they'll win this game. So we'll see what happens. I'll definitely be watching this one. It should be a good one, but I do have to go with the Bengals because they're at home. Into the 4 o'clock games, the first one I have is the Bears at the Broncos, two Bs against each other. So 4:25 game. I probably should have put the 4:05s first, but oh well, you get it. So I do pick the Bears to win this game, coming off that embarrassing Thursday night performance against the Packers, the opening game of the season. They have a lot of time to prep for this game. Joe Flacco did not look all that impressive on the Monday Night Football game, so they're coming off a short week, and the Bears get extended rest. So I think the Bears are a better roster. They have more rest. They probably have a better coach. I'm going with the Bears. I feel like it's pretty easy. So how does the Bears offense look? That's the number one question. I really hope they involve David Montgomery, their rookie running back, more. He looked the best out of those guys between Mike Davis and him, so we'll see. Denver at home in September, they're tough to beat there, but I just feel like the Bears, with the rest and having the better team, they should win this one. Joe Flacco improvements maybe? I don't know. He looked very average in the Monday night game against the Raiders, so we'll see if he can improve at home. What's his name? Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, they had no sacks in week 1 against the Raiders, and I'm sure you would guess that one of them would get a sack at least, but the offensive line for the Raiders played really well. Let's see if the Bears offensive line can do the same thing. There's a lot of good edge rushers to look out for in this game. Of course, Khalil Mack on the other side, and the Bears have so many great players on their front seven, so that's going to be fun to watch. And, as I said, more David Montgomery, please. He looks better than Mike Davis. He probably is better than Mike Davis, but it's the same thing with Devin Singletary. He's a rookie running back, so they don't want to play him a lot. It makes no sense to me. You don't want to go 0-2 Bears, so you might as well play the guy and see what he could do. If David Montgomery fumbles the ball, okay, fine. Bench him. Who cares? See what he has at least. It makes no sense to me. So the -3 seems very generous for the Broncos. I feel like the Bears will win by more than that, so I personally will probably bet this for the Bears. I think -3 is a pretty favorable number for the Broncos. I understand it's in Denver, it's tough, but I will pick the Bears by winning more than 3 points. Next, we have the Chiefs at the Raiders. It's pretty cool how the NFL has set it up. This is the last season in Oakland in all likelihood, so they set it up with two division rivals. The Raiders get two home games early in the season. I mean, it makes sense because who knows if the Raiders will be competitive at the end of the season, so I think the NFL did a good thing for them, having two home games against division rivals the first 2 weeks, so I like how they did that. So I have the Chiefs winning this game, of course. I don't think you could argue that. -7.5 for Chiefs seems fair. They beat the Jaguars last week by more than that. They won by like 16 or 14. They won by a good amount, so I think they could cover the 7.5 point spread. The Raiders did look good on Monday night, so I mean, I give them credit for that, but it was the Broncos. It was Joe Flacco. I was very impressed with their offensive line. Their rookie Josh Jacobs looked great. Tyrell Williams was looking like a #1 receiver. Darren Waller, their tight end, looks like a physical freak who could be a really good tight end for them this year, so we'll see what they do in this game against the Chiefs defense that's not really that good. So Mahomes against the Raiders defense, obviously not a fair matchup. I mean, neither of these defenses are that good, but you have Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, if he wanted to, could probably toss for 450 yards and a few touchdowns in this game. And I would not be shocked if that's what happened. But, we'll see. There's no Tyreek Hill in this game or for the next few weeks for that matter. So, a guy like Mecole Hardman or I don't even know if DeAnthony Thomas is still there or not. I have no idea, honestly. Chiefs fans could correct me on that one. But those guys will probably replace Tyreek Hill. So, does Derek Carr stay hot? He did have a good week one, as I said. The offensive line played well. His receivers were looking good, so we'll see if he can keep it up. Can Josh Jacobs outperform his week one? There was a crazy stat about Josh Jacobs. I forget what the numbers were exactly, but basically he was the first rookie running back in his debut to do something since LaDainian Tomlinson, and that's very impressive in itself. So, keep it up, Josh Jacobs. Neither defense is that scary, as I mentioned. I mean, Oakland's defense does not scare me. The Chiefs' defense for the last couple of years has not been that great. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I expect the Chiefs to win this game based off the offense. I think defensively these teams are somewhat even, but offensively it's like, it's just a different stratosphere for the Chiefs offense. So they should win this game. I'd be shocked if they lost it. Don't know if they'll cover 7.5, but they should win this game. So I have the Chiefs going 2-0, Raiders falling to 1-1. So unless your team is playing at 4 o'clock, I'm sure most NFL fans will try to tune into this game. It is the rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. This time it's at the LA Rams, so it's the Saints at the Rams. The Rams are favored by 2.5 points. Makes sense because they're at home. I do have the Rams winning this game. I think the Saints, they came off a crazy win last week. It'll be hard to one-up that, and this is a tough game going into Los Angeles, and I'd be surprised if they won this game. Of course, 2.5 is not a crazy amount of points, but I do think the Rams will win this game. But for that to happen, Jared Goff has to look better. I watched a lot of his throws against the Panthers last week. He looked very off. As I said, he was just, making just too many bad decisions. He was trying to go down the field way too much when he had underneath routes that were wide open to pick up first downs, but he kept going for it deep. Nearly had a couple more interceptions, so he got lucky that his stats weren't that bad. Does Todd Gurley get more carries? I mean, he was definitely on a carry count last week. It seems like he played a lot of snaps, but just not a lot of carries. Malcolm Brown almost had as many carries as he did. Which defense creates more turnovers? I feel like that's the big thing in this game. These defenses are pretty even for the most part. I think the Rams are a little better defensively, but even they had a rough game against the Panthers, so I mean, who knows? Obviously, the Saints had a rough time with Deshaun Watson, but that makes sense. So I think it comes down to which defense can generate more turnovers. Does a defense score a touchdown? That might be a difference in this game, so which defense steps up, we'll see. The Saints revenge game, obviously, I was talking about the NFC Championship game. I'm sure they want their payback. They want their revenge. I know it's all about the refs, but still, you can't get revenge on the refs. So, I mean, you have to take it out on the team. So, this will be a very fun game to watch. I hope it's nationally televised. It should be, at least. I'll be watching the whole thing if I can. So, do have the Rams winning this game. Would not be surprised if the Saints won this game, but I do have the Rams. They are home. It's a more controlled environment. If this was in New Orleans, I'd probably pick the Saints, but due to the fact that the Rams are home, I'm going with them. On to Sunday Night Football. We have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have to bounce back in this game after the embarrassing loss in Minnesota. As you can see, I picked the Eagles to win this game, but I'm not confident in it. I feel like the Falcons might come out, have a statement game, and eventually, I don't think they're going to come out and kill the Eagles. I think it'll be close, but I think if they can pull out like a last-minute victory, that'll be huge for them. You don't want to go 0-2, obviously, but here's the thing about the Falcons in this game. So Matt Ryan, who is probably a top 10 quarterback, maybe even top 5, some could argue. I don't think so, but he's probably like 5 to 7. He's going to face against this Eagles secondary that struggles a lot. Case Keenum had 380 passing yards, as I said before, against them. Matt Ryan should have a huge game in this one. It all depends on the Falcons' offensive line and if they can, stay upright and then give Matt Ryan enough time to throw. That's the big thing. So we'll see if they can do that. So I do have listed the secondary issues. Can the Falcons' offense rebound? They had a rough game against the Vikings last week. The Falcons have some defensive struggles to worry about. Dalvin Cook was going off against them. We'll see if the Eagles and their 8-man running back rotation can take advantage of that. I'm just kidding. It's like 3 or 4 people, but still, there's always a bunch of running backs in this Doug Peterson system. Matt Ryan, as I said, possible huge game. He's set up in a good spot at home. Sunday Night Football, bad secondary to go against. He has great receivers, obviously. Let's see what happens. And the Falcons could go 0-2. The Eagles did pick up a win, so they're 1-0 already. I forgot to write down the records for this video, so right now the Eagles are 1-0 and the Falcons are 0-1. It'll be a big loss for the Falcons if they go 0-2 on the season, and we'll see what they can do in this game. But I do have the Eagles winning. I think it'll be close, but I think the Eagles are just a little bit better right now. I know their secondary isn't that great, but I do have the Eagles pulling out this game on the road on Sunday Night Football. Lastly, for Monday Night Football, I will actually be attending this game. I'm not big on going to NFL games, but my girlfriend's a big Jets fan. She invited me to go, so of course I had to go. So hopefully it's good weather, and hopefully I'll enjoy it. I hope it's a good game, and there's going to be a lot to watch in this one. It should be fun. So of course, 2 0-1 teams, some embarrassing losses for both of them in different fashions. The Browns just looked terrible overall. The Browns had a good first drive, but after that, offensively, they looked terrible. The Titans scored 43 on them in their own building. The Jets had a 16-0 lead in their game over the division rival Bills, and they blow it and lose 17-16. So a big collapse for them. How do they respond? And, it's not too often we see the Browns as road favorites, but in this instance they are. I do have the Browns winning this game. It's hard to see them losing 2 games in a row. The Jets aren't the best football team. I think they're all right, but they're not good enough to beat Cleveland right now. I think they're going to have a statement game, the Browns. So, as I said, how do the Jets respond? How did the Browns respond? Odell Beckham returning to MetLife Stadium, where, of course, the Giants play as well. So he's returning to the stadium that he's played a lot of games at in his career. Had many good memories there. How do Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield respond after their terrible games? Mayfield played worse, but Sam Darnold could not get anything going against the Bills' defense. I understand the Bills' defense is really good, but Baker Mayfield looked very bad as well. 3 interceptions in that game. Very bad fourth quarter for him. The loser of this game goes to 0-2, so that's big. No one wants that, obviously. It's hard to imagine the Browns, after all the offseason hype, starting 0-2. I can't see that happening, but the media would have a field day with that, so we'll see. I do have the Browns winning this game. It would not shock me if the Jets won this game. I hope it's competitive, considering I'll be there. I hope it's a good finish, and we'll see what happens. So that'll do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy. If you did, let me know in the comments. And as always, I'll talk to you guys next time.